Remote invigilation. Obviously, it's an area we have a full kind of, it's one application where you can turn on remote invigilation if you need it for particular exams, but it is a game changer. And with remote invigilation, again, I think it's definitely a case of, it's not a case of if, it is definitely a case of when. We're seeing huge changes and there's a huge appetite for remote invigilation that wasn't there, 3 or 4 years ago. Now, with remote invigilation, you are recreating the exam hall experience online. Nowadays, you don't need specialised hardware, so your candidates can have any bog standard laptop or desktop or whatever. There are mechanisms, a lot of mechanisms there to deal with internet fluctuations, which maybe weren't there a few years ago. So, you're not dealing with this worry of what happens if everything goes wrong or whatever. So the software and the hardware components available, they're a lot more modern in the last few years. It's come on hugely in the last few years. It is very secure. It preserves the integrity of the exam. There's, and I think the underlying factor in that is we're certainly seeing a lot more levels of approval by accrediting bodies. Certainly Ofqual, SQA, we have quite a lot of customers now running certification exams and diploma exams that are fully accredited by Ofqual and the SQA. And that's quite different. A few years ago, you might have had an organisation that had programmes that were Ofqual regulated, but they were running the non-Ofqual regulated programmes maybe via remote invigilation. Now you're actually seeing that their core programmes are being approved. And I do think these kind of regulating bodies, they are very into kind of furthering and improving the quality of the programmes on offer, and that they do see remote invigilation as something that is key to that. It is completely scalable, so you can roll out anywhere. It does eliminate the huge overhead of sourcing and managing test centres. You can facilitate, very flexible for candidates. And this speaks back to the point I made earlier where, you have to consider the candidate experience. You have to consider, what professional really is going to, in the future, take 2 days off work to fly to a test centre somewhere and take an exam? The sheer inconvenience of that, having to take time off work, it is a big factor, particularly if you're trying to deal with candidates in remoter geographies. And also, it facilitates the move away from the big bang to modular. Most organisations, they run exams once, twice, 3 times a year. Everyone is nuts for that period of time where they're trying to administer the exams. And, realistically, if you're bringing people to test centres, you can't run them more than that, because trying to coordinate test centres every month becomes far more difficult. But with something like remote invigilation, you do have that option, because you're not trying to coordinate loads of test centres. You can run with whatever frequency you like. So it does give you that opportunity to move maybe your exam much closer to the point of study. So maybe your drop-off rate might improve quite significantly, or there's other factors which come into play there. And it really is the martini approach to assessment. Anytime, any place, anywhere. You can assess whenever you want. And it is something that is definitely on most people's radar at this moment in time. So it is something you maybe should consider for your organisation.